Hello and welcome to a very special live interview with someone who I have gotten to know a little bit in the last year. And I'm really, really excited to bring on into the Data Storyteller page, Facebook Live. As you might have seen, I have a very important announcement. I am going to be launching in 10 days an online course version of my private workshop and web class, the Data Storytelling and Presentation Bootcamp. And the reason why I wanted to bring on today's guest, his name is John Reinesch, and he is an SEO and digital analytics consultant, and he helps marketing agencies and various brands just do marketing a lot better. And I'll let him speak to that more. But I brought him on because he was actually one of my first class students. And he had some really, really interesting things to say about the decision to invest in a training like this. And also, he had some really interesting findings about what happened after he invested that training. And I just thought it would be great to bring him on today and help him answer some of the questions that you might have about investing in a training like this. And also, how do you just do communicating data well to clients, and how do you keep them coming back for more? So welcome, John. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this.
Great. So first, talk about what it is you do, the kinds of people you serve, and what kinds of data do you work with, and how do you present it?
Yeah, sounds good. So I focus primarily on SEO and paid search. I work for a B2B digital marketing agency called Beacon Digital Marketing. And I also have a consulting business with one of my good friends, Bronco, where we really focus on just search and analytics. And our clients range across the board in all different industries. And as far as data, yeah, everything we do is we try to be really grounded in data and really make our decisions based on what we're seeing, rather than just going based on like a templated strategy. We really like to be really prescriptive and really use data to figure out the best way to maximize our campaigns that we're running. So that's really central to pretty much everything we do for both the agency and my consulting business.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So, how did you fall into this gig? Like, was it a sort of immediately? Was it a winding path? I'm always curious about people's origin stories.
Yeah, with marketing, everyone always has different stories on how they got into it. So it's always interesting.
Yeah.
For me, I was just working in retail in college and trying to find
Okay.
something to do. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I stumbled on a couple of videos on YouTube actually on SEO. And ever since then, I just kind of got hooked on it and started working on my own websites. Then took a job for an agency locally. And then from there, really started to grow my own business and getting my own clients and really focus on that over the past year and a half. And that's what I've been doing since then.
Oh, nice. And as your career has sort of progressed and, flowed, how did presenting information start to fit into your role?
Yeah, pretty early on. When I started out working for the first agency, the first experience I had with Google Analytics and reporting was just sending screenshots of a dashboard we had in there to clients as their monthly reporting. And at
Okay.
the time, that's all I really knew. And then that kind of led me to dig into and really start diving into analytics and reporting and data more from there, and realize like where the big gap was and how much more we really could be doing that we weren't. And
Mm.
then from there, I really just started studying on my own, taking courses,
Oh, cool.
really getting my hands on anything I could, and then starting implementing that for my own clients, anything I learned. I feel like that was key. It's good to acquire information, but the key is really to use it and make it actionable so you actually start
Mm.
applying it to what you're doing. And that's really what helped take me, I think, and help take my clients to another level from where we were when we started. That's something I'm really big on, is really starting to implement things right away and take action rather than just kind of collecting information and sitting on it. So that's been really big.
Yeah. I can see that about you. I was amazed that, you really seemed to grasp the concepts right away, but you also came back and showed that you were actively putting them into practice. And, I'm a bit of a course junkie and personal growth junkie myself. And I know that, something really has to stand out to me as valuable in order to really put it into practice, because habits are really hard to break. So for you, what was kind of the motivation to put that right away? Is that you kind of self-funded this learning journey for you as a consultant? Like, what inspired you to take the step to invest in this?
Yeah, I think the big thing was on the consulting side, really trying to figure out how we can improve the relationship we have with clients. We had quite a few cases
Mm.
where I felt like everything was going really well. They were getting results with SEO. We were getting leads from paid search. We just weren't displaying that to the client in a way that they understood.
Right.
So everything seemed to be going perfect. And 3 months later, you get a notice that they're canceling.
Oh,
And it's always the
yeah.
same story. They just didn't understand the value we were providing. So to me, perceived value is almost more important than results. It's if you can
Mm.
display what you're doing and how it's actually helping and the impact it's having to a client, that's really going to help client retention and building that relationship that ultimately lasts. Because with my business, I'm really into having long-term relationships with my clients. I
Yeah.
know some people go through clients quickly, they'll go for lower
Yeah.
rates and they just almost that churn and burn style. But I really find getting clients on better retainers and a better relationship that you could do long term is really critical.
Yeah.
It's especially so you don't have to focus all your time on sales if that's not what you're into.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I know. No, I can absolutely understand formulating a really rewarding, sustainable long-term client relationship. I see as a lot more valuable than sort of just a conveyor belt
yeah.
that of ones that come in and don't work out and go out. So what do you think? Why do you think that your clients initially were not seeing or not perceiving the true value of the successes that you were clearly seeing, but somehow they were missing it?
Yeah, I think part of it was in a lot of our reporting, I used to put too much in there. So a lot of it was just having too much data in there that to me makes sense. But when a client sees that, they just see a bunch of numbers, charts. They don't know what any of it means.
Right.
So it was more, and a lot of it was more focused on what happened rather than like, here's what we could be doing or here's how we maximize what we're doing. And that was a big shift after taking the
Yeah.
course. Is really trying to focus on not just what happened, but why did it happen and what can we do to actually continue to see growth in different channels that we're working on and where are the opportunities. And
Mhm.
then ultimately, here's how we're going to act on it and who's going to actually do it as well. That's often a step I feel like gets missed and that we were missing. Even when we did have some insights, nothing actually ended up happening of it. It was just kind of sat
Mm.
there and next month we went over the same thing or slightly different. And it's
Right.
just that cycle that keeps repeating. So being able to actually start implementing some of our recommendations and have our clients buy into it as well
Mm.
was a really big focus for us. And something that I really wanted to see improve. And it's definitely been a big factor in seeing some growth with my own business.
Oh, that's so fantastic to hear because after so many years as an analyst, I just know that you put in the time, you put in the time to do the presentation, and I guess you get paid for that time. But for me, the real intrinsic value of the role that I was playing was actually creating that incremental lift of action within people. And it can feel so frustrating when you're like, guys, it's right in front of you.
Yep.
How do you not get it? But it's in a bucket of 100 other numbers. I don't know why you don't see it. But what do you think in terms of the too much? So I'm so glad that you picked that up because that's a big focus of changing the habits that we have around what I call the kitchen sink presentation, where you take every number you have available in GA or whatever tool, Adobe, and dropping them in there, hoping one of them sticks. You had talked about earlier to me about a specific example of when you kind of had like a before and after process with one particular client. So I'd love for you to talk through in that particular scenario, what did what did backing off of too much look like? How did you focus on what ultimately mattered?
Yeah. So one of the things specifically that I've been working on with a good friend of mine, Bronco, on our consulting business is we do like these 3 month sprints that we sign clients on for, where it's basically it's a way for both of us and the client to try each other out and see how the relationship works. But
Mhm.
also it's a way for us to prove what we can do and the value we bring. So one of the big things is that really helped us sign on clients long term since then was doing a wrap up report where we really dig into here's all the tactics that we did, here's exactly what we did, here's what we saw, and then here's our recommendation plan over the next 6 months.
Mhm.
And then the exact details on how we're going to do it. That report and really simplifying that, I think prior to taking this course, I probably would have threw every metric I had at them and then tried to figure out, just in case anything comes up, to be prepared. But really,
Right.
one thing that I really learned is really simplicity is key to make something really stick and for someone to understand it. And that's really been key. We signed on lots of clients from these sprints where prior to that, we were having some trouble. After we would do the 3 months, some clients weren't renewing. So that was another reason why I really wanted to take this course, to figure out how can we kind of almost use this as a sales tool, even to actually get
Yeah.
close clients and get them on a longer term month-to-month agreement where we can actually have more success and more contributing to their campaigns. And that wrap-up report really had a big impact on that. And I think the big reason was that we really focused that on what we can do next and how we're going to continue to see growth. And a lot of it, when we actually made the report, it looked simple. There was just a few charts in some of these, but
Yeah.
the impact was so much more than when I used to just put almost every number I could on those, just to, because I always was thinking if they have a question, I want to make sure I have everything there. But with a lot of it, if it's simple enough for them to understand, the questions are more proactive and about things that we can actually do and what should we do next, rather than like, what does this number mean or what does that mean? And I think that's been a big reason why we're getting some of these long-term clients now.
Oh my gosh. I think I actually remember you commenting during the first session that you're like, oh my God, I've been putting way too much in here.
Yeah, we had to redo all of our
I
data
think-
studio templates after that.
Sorry. No, but I mean, and you know what else is amazing about that? I love this whole story and about this wrap-up report. I love especially that you're actually using it as a sales closing tool, because there's no question the entire initial framework, which is taught in the first phase, is based on a persuasion model. It was based on a model that was designed to secure venture capital funding for startups. So I thought, well, what better kind of spirit to apply, because we are selling our insights. Even if we're not closing clients, we are trying to sell essentially and sell our own intrinsic value too, right? But yeah, I love that, because also if the less that you have in there, the less that you have to explain if they don't get it, right?
That's true
So
too.
it has a side benefit there.
Yeah, and with that, a lot of times, I would think clients would think we're not really putting in time on the report if it had less, but it actually takes almost more insight and more time to actually really craft something that kind of tells a story and just has what they need to see, rather than just
Yes.
throwing everything on there, which looks like you did a lot, but really you're just throwing numbers on a page and you're not really, no one's really getting anything out of it. So that's been a big shift for me, really focusing in on that.
That's fantastic. And you're so right. It is so much harder to pull together a single focused presentation that really ties to one major idea than just the laundry list update. But what I really appreciate is that you weren't afraid to go head on into that process, because sometimes I experience resistance like, oh, I don't need this to be harder. I want this to be easier, and obviously through productivity tools and time savers, I try to incorporate ways of making things easier. But what doing this well, like you said, really requires is a commitment to understanding that it might be harder in the beginning.
Yeah, and I
And
think with that, yeah, the initial work on like revamping reports, templates, and things like that, that definitely takes time and resources. It's also good practice to actually start applying some of this stuff right away when you start revamping some of those things.
Mhm.
And the checklist, there's one of the things I really like about the course is there's a lot of checklists
Yeah.
that actually let you pretty much go step by step on how to improve your reporting process and things like that. So that's been really big, because not only can I use that, I can give that to team members. So we're all on the same page and we're all following the same process, which if you run an agency or a consulting business, you really know process is everything. It's
Yeah.
not really a matter sometimes what you do. If you're trying to scale, you really have to have a process in place that really anyone can follow. And so it's repeatable. And that's one of the things that you're going to get out of this really is getting actual checklists that you can use right away and actually start to implement it, rather than just a bunch of theory, and which is good. You need that, but to actually be able to
Yeah.
implement it and run with it, I think has been big.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate you saying that so much, because the entire goal of this training was to combine that inspirational light a fire under you theoretical stuff, but also be like, well, what the hell do I actually do now? Like, I'm going to sit down. What do I do? And I appreciate that so much, especially sharing that so that you can have a consistent process and workflow, because that will also mean that your clients can come to expect something consistent, and they can begin to rely on being able to extract that value from your company's reporting, as a whole. So great. If you had one checklist that was missing and you could like wave a magic wand, what would be like your dream checklist now?
That's a good question. I think I'll start with the one I really like, the chart detox. I think
Yeah.
that has been really big, really just simplifying charts and really making them more impactful at just a chart level, not outside of the report. That's
Mhm.
been big. So anything with that, I feel like that's also been great for new team members who we have working on reports that may
Right.
not be as familiar with some of the things that you go over there. So because a lot of times I see when even I was doing this too, building out charts that they just don't look right. There's grid lines. There's just all sorts of confusion on them, and really simplifying them has been really big for the reports. And just clients, they notice that thing too when they see the whole visual presentation of the report as well. It makes it really a big impact. So if there's anything else that can be built on that aspect, I think that's huge. And
More
anything
detox?
for more detoxing. I think anything also with helping new employees or new team members who are just getting into reporting,
Onboarding, okay.
onboarding, to get almost like a standard operating procedure kind of thing where we can
Hmm.
actually implement this across our agency or consulting side with different freelancers we work with, things like that. Just anything to get people on the same page.
Interesting. Well, in the course, I'm expanding on a lot of the content because with the web class you took, I was confined to only 4 hours. And with the course, I'm putting as much as I want in there because everything's being taken at your own leisure. So one of the things I, was considering was expanding out like chart detoxes for different platforms. And this is giving me a pretty interesting idea about like, the something called a presentation style guide where you capture all the fonts that you're using, how data should look, how accenting data should look, how numbers should be formatted. Everything is kind of like encapsulated in one piece. So, kind of like a branding guideline, but taken to the next level to show how data would be handled as well. So, that could be something really interesting for you guys too.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to checking that out.
Yeah. So, now that you started to use a lot of these principles, other than, like live presentations, which is pretty much what this is mainly geared towards, that environment, have you found that this has helped spill over into other kinds of, deliverables that you have to send out?
Yeah, so I actually do a lot of on the SEO side, things like technical audits, content
Okay.
audits, where it's less focused on a report and more focused on digging into a website's history, what's going on, how can we improve it. And
Yeah.
I have a presentation that I've been giving for that to clients after we
Ah.
complete it. I usually do it in a spreadsheet, and for a while I was just sending the spreadsheet over.
Mhm.
And that obviously is really technical. Clients never really understand anything in there.
Mhm.
But I applied a lot of the principles into the reporting aspect into actually delivering a presentation on a technical audit. So when I go through with a client, I actually have a deck that we go through. We're not really even looking at the spreadsheet at all. If they want the data, it's there, but
Yeah.
it's much more digestible, and clients are really understanding it. Even if they're not
Oh.
familiar with SEO, a lot of the clients I work with at the agency, Beacon Digital Marketing, are B2B like software companies and different companies like that, and they have marketing teams that we're presenting to. So they typically don't have someone who's too familiar with SEO. So sending a spreadsheet with all these technical things in it really just doesn't do anything. It just sits there and none of these changes are made. But
Mhm.
giving the presentation and applying a lot of the data storytelling aspect of it into a technical SEO audit really, I feel like helps separate the audits that we're doing from a lot of other companies out there.
Yeah.
And really, it's the impact of it now. Every time we do them, clients have really positive stuff to say to our client success team.
Oh,
They
that's
understand
awesome.
it, and we're actually either they'll sign us on to make the changes and implement them, or they'll actually get their development team to do them. So that's been another big thing that I think I didn't realize I'd be able to use the course for, but it actually spills over into there's almost every deliverable you do for a client that you're presenting. You could really apply a lot of this stuff to.
Oh, yay. I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of, because there are a lot of very um, fundamental design principles included in there that anyone who has to create a Word document, I feel, should be empowered with some of that stuff. So it didn't even really occur to me that it could influence so many other, outputs like that. That's really great to hear. So now I want to talk about some of the challenges some of my students experience cultural blockages to implementing some of these new practices, because the clients might say, well, I don't like this. I don't like something about this, but they also don't like change. So just curious to hear what your experience was in implementing the changes from the receiver side.
Yeah, I feel like that's the big thing. Clients a lot of times don't like change. They get used to something. And some even clients just request a bunch of metrics that don't really mean anything a lot of times as well. But
Yeah.
so there was obviously a little resistance at first going to a new reporting format. But what I really liked is that quickly went away once we actually dug into it and really focused on kind of outcomes rather than just
Mm.
historical data, what happened. Almost across the board, there was complete buy-in to it, which was great.
Oh, that's great.
And we're not getting as many requests too to send random metrics over, which is always good as well.
Oh,
So it's more like they see the report, they don't need to see anymore. They understand what our recommendations are, and then we just keep moving forward and keep it really collaborative and constructive rather than just getting hung up on certain numbers in a report. The other thing too is really we've been focusing on not just painting the picture that everything's always going well, but really digging into when things aren't going well. What's our plan to actually
mm,
improve? And here's what we're recommending, rather than trying to hide that or not manipulate, but make things look a certain way. It's actually when you dig into what's going wrong and clients see that you're really actively trying to fix it or trying to improve. That's another thing that really helps retention and building that trust with the client that you really are looking to help grow their business. That's been really big. For every time we do a report, if we see something's not working, we'll call it out and we'll have a list of recommendations on here's how we can actually start to improve, or here's how maybe we do a different channel. There could be a number of recommendations, but it all kind of lines up with the big picture of what we're trying to show to clients, that really we're bringing a lot of value to them. Even if things aren't going well, we're going to fix it and
right.
we're going to be there to help keep moving them forward. So yeah, so that's been huge.
Okay, I love what you just said there, which was, even if things are not going well, you're still proving your value. That I think is so huge, because I think in a lot of ways we kind of show up to these readouts maybe once a month, once a week, and we just kind of regurgitate a number of numbers, and it's either good news or bad news or meh. And that's the whole of the experience. But instead of trying to sugarcoat bad news, which I don't believe in, um, or run away from it, cover it up. It's about like taking it head on and be like, yeah, this happened, but we have a job tomorrow, and we are your partner, and we want to dig in. And what I'm hoping is that this empowered you with a bit of more confidence to say, like, we know what we're doing in this arena. We are your partner, and we're ready to help you dive in and move this forward, move this around.
Yeah, and that's really what's going to help you stand out, because most agencies, consultants, and I was guilty of this for a while too, is always wanting to show things going up in the right direction,
Right.
everything's going well, but you build so much more
Yeah.
trust and a better relationship with the client when you're the one to actually tell them things that aren't going well and things that you see that can be improved, even if it's something that you did. It also helps with getting more of a culture around testing and trying things out, because it
Yes.
doesn't have to be like everything you do is a success, where you really don't know sometimes until you try something. So a lot of times you can get data and feedback on maybe we need to adjust something, or maybe we don't do that tactic anymore and we try something else. So being able to display that to clients and not run away from it has been really big, I think, and a big reason why we're really retaining our clients, which was our ultimate goal going into this.
That's got to be such a fresh air for clients, because you're right. A lot of it is, no, let's just make this look as good as possible. And, you know, I think what you said, retention in the midst of things not going that well, that I think is really a hallmark of how you're really projecting your value. Because I know there are clients that will bail the first minute that things seem to go bad, and maybe promises were made or and whatnot. But I think that is just so fantastic, because like apparent supposedly, like in the Russian culture, trust is built on total radical honesty, like brutal honesty. And I think that, we're a different culture. Still, our radar goes up when we feel like we're not getting the whole story. I think that any kind of stakeholder can be intuitive enough to pick up on that. So transparency is key.
Yeah, and I think one thing to add to that too that I noticed, a lot of for the B2B clients I work with, typically I'm presenting to marketing teams, directors of marketing, and they're going to present to
Mm.
their executive team. So
Mhm.
one of the big things when I started shifting and really adjusting our reporting is they're actually using it almost directly to present to their CEOs and executive team, where yeah, prior to that, they would maybe take bits and pieces of it
Right.
and make their own report. So that's the other thing. We're making their lives easier. We're making kind of showing their value as well, because ultimately with those types of clients, we're there to make them look good to their management. So that's been big, where they could actually take it, they understand it, so they don't need us there to go over it, and they're able to actually use it directly with whoever their leadership team is. So that's just another thing that I think there's another thing I didn't think about going into this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm just so like wrapped up in wrapped up in your story. Um, Amazing stuff. So let's see. Who are the kinds of practitioners that you would think could benefit from investing in training like this?
Yeah, I think this has a lot of applications, from people who are just solo consultants looking to grow that, people who own agencies or work for an agency. Reporting is a big part of really anything you do, whether you do SEO, paid search, social, whatever it is you do, you have to prove your value and
Right.
show what you're doing to really contribute to a client's business. So really all aspects of consultant agencies, and even if you're on an internal team as well. I know I worked in-house for a software company for a little while, and one of the big things there that was different from an agency is constantly like presenting to kind of the senior leadership team, and getting them to buy into what's been going on. Because a lot of
Mhm.
times executive teams, they don't really understand sometimes some of the tactics and some of the details of what we're doing. But so
Right.
showing value to them is a little bit different, and understanding that, knowing your audience to a degree, who you're actually presenting to, is really important. So whether you're on an internal team or an agency, you're going to get a lot of value out of it.
Oh, thank you thanks for mentioning that, because of course I didn't say it, but I do want to make it clear this is not just for consultants or independent contractors. This is absolutely for anyone that presents data pretty much and catering to a digital audience. So I appreciate many of the angles that you're bringing up for this. So what do you think, what's your big like pie in the sky goal as a digital practitioner in the next year or so for yourself?
Yeah, I think for me right now, I really want to keep growing the consultant side of things. That's been going really well, and I really want to explore that further. And that's something I'm really focusing a lot of time on now, building that out, getting clients, keeping them, and really building that aspect of it. It's been something I'm really focusing on. I really started that at the beginning of this year, so it's been pretty fresh, since I'm focusing a lot of time there now, and
Mhm.
that's something I want to keep working on. I think for me, in terms of what I actually like to do the best, it's really focusing on analytics, digging through data and getting like those insights that really get someone to change and get someone to take action. I think is
Mhm.
something I really like exploring and really like doing. And that's something I kind of want to keep investing my time into, whether that's with more courses, training, and just doing that for clients to get the experience. I think has been big.
Cool. Well, that sounds awesome. And hopefully, whatever I come out with for the rest of the year can help continue to support that mission. So now we've come to our last question. So I always ask this on my podcast, but I thought this would be cute to ask here too. So think very hard about this plausible scenario. You are walking along in a park and you suddenly trip and fall into a vortex that pulls you back to the moment you're about to give your first presentation. What does today you say to yesterday you?
That is a great question. I think that what I would say, probably a lot of things I could say, is just be confident in what you're saying, and
Mm,
understand that you know what you're doing. And ultimately, people are looking to you to be an expert. So really be that and own that, and understand that, even if someone's asking a question or if they're kind of digging into what you're doing, if you have a good answer and a good reason why you're doing it, that's ultimately what matters. People don't really care too much on what you're doing. A lot of times, if you know why you're doing it,
yeah,
and what impact it's going to have, focus on that, and everything else take care of itself from there.
that's great advice. I feel like I could publish a book from all the advice that I've gotten from people when I ask that question on this
Yeah, I'd like to see that actually.
on the show. All right. Okay. Well, unfortunately, our time has run out, but I really have to thank you. You actually made me think about different angles of the value of this training and how to actually put it into practice in so many ways. And if people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
Probably the best place is you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm the most active. So if you shoot me a message, I'll get back to you guys. I build a lot of templates and different things in Google Sheets to help automate a lot of like
Oh,
SEO processes and things like that. So if you're interested in any of those, I it's all for free. I don't sell any of those, so just shoot me a message and I'll send them over.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I lost you for a second.
I froze for a second. Sorry. I was going to say, I don't know if you saw my Google Sheets detox that I came out with. I was wondering if you had seen that, and I'll shoot it over to you.
Yeah, actually, I have. I saw you put out a couple articles too, blogs. So I actually use a lot of that too on my sheet
Cool.
templates.
Nice. Well, I want to thank you so much again for joining me. And super quick plug, the cart opens on the bootcamp next Monday, the 15th. You can get on the wait list now at leahpica.com/bootcamp. It is going to have, it's a series, a bundle of courses that will probably have over 40 different video modules, courses, checklists, and a private Slack community so people can network and also ask questions to me directly. So any questions that you have, feel free to message them in the comments below. And John, thank you again for taking the rest of your Friday to join me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.